today's live webinar entitled Cutting Through the Clutter. Welcome to today's live webinar entitled Cutting Through the Clutter, the marketing essentials every business needs to grow sales in 2015. This program is sponsored and presented to you by Sales Renewal. There will be a question and answer session at the conclusion of today's program. To provide feedback on today's live webinar, you can access the survey tab in the presentation tool at the end of the program. The survey will also be emailed to you following today's program. If you need operator assistance during the call, please press star and then 0 on your touchtone phone. Please note that this event is being recorded. At this time, I would like to turn the call over to your presenters, Keith Loris and Audrey Trishman. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Welcome. Good afternoon, everybody. Hopefully you're looking at the first slide, Cutting Through the Clutter. What we're going to start talking about is the revenue challenge every small business has. I mean, folks understand the wisdom of the cliche, measure twice, cut once, which is really getting at the notion of the importance of having a plan, and particularly in a business context, a strategic growth plan. But the unfortunate reality is that takes a lot of time, a lot of analysis, and a lot of marketing expertise, things which are often in short supply in most small businesses today. And, of course, you also still have your regular job to do when you're taking on all these additional sort of planning activity. So, unfortunately, what ends up happening is that people end up going with their gut. They pick some marketing tactic. They read a blog post about search engine optimization or trade shows or something, and they think that's the solution to their problem. That's how they're going to generate leads and sales. Or they talk with a colleague, and their brother-in-law has a company and an advertising agency really increased the number of leads, so they think, all right, I'll hire that ad agency. And unfortunately, the end result of many of these things, again, lack of the planning, is not just disappointment, but an expensive disappointment. You spend some money, you didn't really get what you were looking for. So this seminar lays out the marketing as essentials. Instead of going with your gut or talking to a colleague in a different business, we're going to try and lay out the essentials we believe are helpful to all businesses today. Now, the slide that you just saw is actually a simplification. It's really a lot worse than that. I don't know if you can see all the tiny little logos in this graphic, but there are 1,876 different marketing technology vendors out there. They've actually doubled in 1 year. All of them claim they can help you grow your sales, all right? And from our perspective, you can boil that sort of chaotic universe down to just 9 strategies. Things such as paid marketing, web marketing and SEO, content marketing, social media. Now, those are all very web-oriented things, and if you have a pure web business and an e-commerce business, those are going to be very important to you. But there are also some other strategies out here that are important to other businesses that don't just operate on the web. Things like in-person marketing, networking and trade shows and seminars and webinars and things like that. Also product marketing, sort of the internalized voice of the customer within an organization when they're developing products and services. For the point of this seminar, however, you can actually remove some of the specialized businesses, remove some of the advanced tactics, and you end up with the marketing essentials that we believe every business needs. And these 9 different things, we're going to walk through these different characters. We personified the 9 strategies. And we're going to walk through these different things and give you a sense of what the marketing essentials are. So I'm going to start with the overall strategy management and benchmarking. But before we do that, we want to go through some basics in terms of marketing. So for the perspective of this seminar, we've invented this fictitious company, sitstayhome.com. You can see their demographics on the left. And they're trying to sell electric fences to suburban households in an upper middle class community. And that's our little test case. Another marketing truth that's going to be very important with marketing essentials is the what's in it for me notion. Now, this has always been true in marketing, but in today's chaotic, busy, overloaded world, this is really, really important. You got to get to the point, and the point's got to be what's in it for them. An important sort of marketing 101 element is the notion of the sales funnel. Sometimes it's called the buying cycle, the customer journey. And this is a traditional marketing idea where you have a bunch of people at the left end of that screen that have a bunch of different needs. And they can go through different states, become visitors and prospects and customers, and basically there's a bunch of needs on the left and some credit card numbers on the right, and you want to funnel them through this. So we're using some examples here of search engine work, where somebody might be sitting down in Google and they're searching, I don't want my dog to run away, okay? And that might be what's in their head, but they would express that in ways, how to keep my pet safe or humane ways to contain my dog. But the need that they're really expressing is they don't want the dog to run away. That's what we call visitor one. So there are lots of people like that. They're not necessarily qualified prospects. They're visitors, meaning you don't even know who they are yet, but they have this sort of need, and they're looking for information. And that's the key thing about this sales funnel. The people who are in all these different steps, which we simplified into these 4 steps, visitor 1, visitor 2, prospect, and customer, they have different information needs, they have different requirements at different times as they journey through this sales funnel. And marketing's job is to try and meet those needs, answer their questions, and move them through the funnel so they go from visitors to prospects to phoning up a credit card. Another example is visitor 2, okay, there's a thing called electric fences. Now, what companies are good for that, and what are the different qualities of electric fences? And you notice a lot of the things in visitor 1 and visitor 2 stage are really educational. They really need to be taught about certain things. At a certain point, maybe you offered some really cool white paper on your website, and they typed in their email address and name to get that white paper. So now the visitor is no longer just an unqualified lead, they're a prospect. You have a name, you have an email address, you can communicate with them. And they're honing in now. They're getting into the specifics about rechargeable electric fences or electric fences with GPS, different features of the particular products. And then, of course, once they buy, the sales funnel, the customer journey is not over because there's repeat sales, there's word-of-mouth recommendation, and so on. So it does not stop. The sales funnel does not stop with the customer. So that's an important framework that we're going to refer to quite a bit in the presentation. Another important thing is what we call key concepts. And it's a really simple idea. It's the basic key ideas of your business. The important wrinkle, though, it's not from your perspective, but from your prospects and customers' perspective. As industry insiders, we often think we know the right way, the right way to describe something, and so on. Your prospects are often not as well educated, and they might conceive of your business and your products and services very differently than the way you might. And in this sense of the key concept, the customer's always right. It's the way they think of your business and the solutions you provide to them that's really relevant here. Once you've developed these key concepts, you can use them throughout all of your different kind of marketing. These key concepts come from many different areas. You can see those on the left column. The right column, though, we've come up with 3 key concepts for sit, stay home that really come out of the differentiator category. And by differentiator, we mean these are the things that differentiate sit, stay home from all its competitors. So these are particularly important, powerful concepts that sit, stay home would like to own, right? Now, when you come up with some key concept, they can be used, as we said, in many different ways. So, for example, we can use the third one, humane vet-endorsed fencing systems, to come up with different keywords that we try and optimize in search engine optimization, which is so that your pages rank well when somebody's doing a search on Google or Bing. We can also take one of those things and write a series of blog posts about humane vet-endorsed fencing systems. And we can also come up with a series of online ads where maybe the headlines of the ads talk about vet-endorsed fencing, things like that. So just to give you an example, these key concepts are used across the board. People tend to think of them really in a keyword search engine optimization sense, but they're really much broader than that. Now, I mentioned earlier that the lack of planning could lead to expensive disappointment. So I want to kind of walk you through a scenario here to really prove the point. It's almost a truism that if you can figure out problems early, it's almost always better, faster, cheaper to do it then than later on once you've actually built the thing or you've launched the program. So as an example, you're trying to grow leads for your business. You talk to your brother-in-law. He's really happy with his ad agency. And you figure, hey, if it worked for his business, it should work for mine too. right? And the good news is it does seem to work. You hire the company, and after a period of time, you start getting more visitors to your site, you start getting more leads, and you're very happy. The problem, though, is if you didn't step back and try and think about what actually your fundamental problem, right? If your fundamental problem was you don't have enough traffic to your website, then an ad agency is a great solution, because that's what they do. They bring visitors to your website, right? But in this hypothetical example, the fundamental problem was poor site design. People come to the site and they get lost in the navigation. They never make it to the Contact Us page, and so that was actually their real problem. They didn't realize that because their problem was different than the brother-in-law's problem. The brother-in-law, they needed more traffic to their site. Their ad agency worked great for them. But here, they have a different problem, and so the solution that worked for the brother-in-law is not necessarily going to work for them. So in this case, they've hired a great vendor, the ad agency, but they're solving the wrong problem because they haven't touched the poor site design, and they are bringing more traffic to the site. But the result of that, though, is you're spending your marketing dollars inefficiently, right? Given the amount of money you're spending for advertisers, for the advertising program, it's bringing visitors to your site because the fundamental problem is poor site design. People are not calling, they're not going to the Contact Us page as much as they should be if the site was better designed. So you're spending all these ad dollars and you're not getting as many leads as you should have. That also applies to anything else you're doing. Any other activities you're doing to get more people to come to your website, okay? Same thing applies. If you're doing search engine optimization or direct mail, you're losing some people because the fundamental problem was the site design. Probably the most insidious thing about this whole thing, though, is that the inefficiency is invisible to you. You are getting more leads. So you think, oh, this ad agency is working great. You don't realize that, oh, I actually should have been getting more leads than I am getting because I kind of tackled the wrong problem first. So the solution to that is to do some planning, and we recommend starting with the big picture. You know, the basic questions about your business, your competitive position, your current level of investment in marketing and technology. So as you can see on this slide, here are some example questions. And then you want to dig deeper. What are the benefits that you provide customers? Not just what you think, but what do the customers actually say, ideally, that you're providing to them? What are your competitive advantages, and can they be sustained over the long term, or you just have a short window of time? Who are your customers? What are their personas? Are you marketing to engineers who never want to talk to human beings? So they don't want a call-in option, they want a form option, things like that. You should definitely take stock of what you're doing. You want to leverage your strengths and obviously minimize your weaknesses. You want to get an inventory of your overall sales and marketing assets and figure out which ones you want to leverage, which ones you want to improve. A key part of that is analytics and benchmarking. And, you know, the truth is that growing sales and leads is expensive in both time and dollars. And so our philosophy is, if you can't measure something, why do it? What's the point of doing it? Really, analytics answers two critical questions. Where do our visitors and leads come from? And which of our marketing activities generated those visits and those leads? And the whole point of that, of course, is to do more of what's working and less of what's not. And this allows you to become more efficient over time. This is especially important for a smaller business who doesn't have such margin of error, where they have really big budgets and they can afford to have really expensive learning curves. You also need to keep in mind that there are 4 different types of leads, or as we call them, contact points. Particularly web-oriented business tend to think about submits from their website. You know, somebody goes to a Contact Us page, or they download a white paper, or they give an email address, and they send you an email address. And that's fine. And there are a lot of tools, such as Google Analytics, a fine tool, that can really track that, right? And so if somebody clicked an ad that came through your website, they navigated different pages, they ended up going to the Contact Us, tools like Google Analytics will say, okay, that expense for the ad generated a lead, and you can do over time an ROI analysis. Is this paying for itself? Am I getting a return on this investment? The problem is that there are 3 other kinds of leads that are often overlooked, right? One is the plain old telephone, okay, phone calls. 50% of leads still come over the telephone. They're not coming from a website submit. Leads do come from email, sales at or info at. And then the category that's often forgotten is face-to-face meetings. You go to a networking event, trade show, all those leads really should be tracked. They're all as a result of different marketing activities, and you really need to analyze all four to get the complete picture. As an example of analytics, you see on the left there an example of the do more of what's working and less of what's not. Those different colors in that donut shape indicate the percentage of leads that are coming from various marketing activities. So you can see the yellow one, which in this case happens to be referrals and listings, is generating the majority of leads. And a really simple analysis says, am I investing about half of my time and energy in referrals and listings? If I'm getting half my leads and I'm only spending 25% of my time, that's a really good program. I want to do more of that one, right? Conversely, the green one, I can't even see what it is on my screen here, but that's a little sliver. And if that one's a very expensive sliver, you might think, oh, I want to do less of that and do more of the yellow. Okay. Another example related to the contact points, this is actually live data from one of our clients. About a quarter, 27% of this firm's leads are coming from the web submits, the green bar in that chart. All right? And why that's important is that this is actually a pretty common scenario. It turns out when I said that 50% figure earlier, that's actually from the Contact Us page. 50% of the people who navigate to a Contact Us page, at least in our clients, they navigate to the Contact Us page, they end up not submitting the form. They end up calling the phone number they see at the top of the page. And that's completely fine. You're getting the lead, right? But the issue is if you're not tracking the phone calls, and that person originally came to the site because you paid for an advertising click, you're not going to credit the ad campaign for generating that lead. So you're going to start making investment decisions on just part of the pie, right? And, the joke at Sales Renewal, this is kind of like that old story about the drunk who's looking for his lost car keys under the street lamp because that's where the light is. It's the same sort of idea. The fact that the web submits are lit up for you and you know that you can analyze that, that's not sufficient. You have to look at the totality of where your leads are coming from if you want to make the right investment decisions in terms of marketing programs. This slide talks about the thing that's the least popular, which is sort of the project management or just the management of marketing. It's not a very glamorous thing. It's a lot easier to get lost in the details of advertising or trade shows and glitzy things like that. But the truth is marketing is multidisciplinary, it's multi-channel, it's very complex. Tasks have to be done in the right order, and you have to figure what that order is. If you decide to hire the ad firm before you improve your poor website design, you're wasting money, right? And this is the process that figures that sort of thing out. Once you've got everything going, you want to monitor your marketing program. You want to manage them and make sure they're producing the return. There are many tools that are available to this. Very simply, you can just create an Excel file. You could put tasks in the rows. You can have different columns for who's doing what and what date they said, all the way up to very powerful commercial solutions like a company called Liquid Planner, which is an online project management tool. I mean, you can choose your own level of comfort and level of detail, but the point is it has to really be planned. Otherwise, you're going to hire the ad firm before you fix the website design. The whole point of this thing is really continual change. It's not a can't set once and forget kind of thing. We live in a very hyper-competitive landscape. Your competitors are changing. Your own goals and objectives might be changing. We certainly know that the search engines' algorithms are changing all the time, what they consider important. And so this is an area of continuous improvement in terms of your marketing program. What we recommend is you start with the high-level plan. That's what we've been talking about. But you're not really done there. On a monthly basis, you should really be looking at your data and seeing what's working, what's not. And then on a quarterly basis, you can roll up those monthly and think about, oh, look at this. That yellow category, the listings, that's generating a lot more leads. Let's take some money from advertising and put more money to this. It's really producing for us, right? And, of course, this all relies on good analytic data so you can do this kind of benchmarking. I want to talk briefly about the notion of inbound marketing. There's a lot of stuff. If any of you folks have searched online for marketing assistance, you've probably come across this term. And the basic idea is inbound marketing gets prospects to come to you via content you put out there and via social media. The strength of inbound marketing is you get very qualified, educated prospects. By the time they knock on your door, they've read your stuff, they understand what your service is, and so it really does hasten the sales cycle. The weakness, though, is that you're very dependent on third parties. You don't really control your destiny here. So Google decides to change its algorithm, and all of a sudden they make a change that changes something on mobile sites, and your leads disappear. Or social media platforms change their policies. A few years ago, businesses were told, oh, you got to get consumers to like your page, like your business, because that was like an opt-in for email, and you can market to them. Well, Facebook went public, they needed advertising, and they changed what a like meant for business. It no longer means that, okay? So if you built the whole strategy around that liking, when they change their mind on something, you run some risk. Inbound marketing, of course, is distinguished from marketing, or what some people now call outbound marketing, and that's really the basic idea of marketing. So most people think of marketing, which is spreading the word about your business, getting the word out via things like advertising and trade shows and PR and networking, right? The strengths of marketing is, of course, it has withstood the test of time. It's absolutely the best way to reach the widest possible audience in the shortest amount of time. Okay? You can get the word out quickly. It's especially effective if your business is marketing to other businesses, B2B marketing, and or if you're selling higher-end products or expensive products. Not too many people are going to buy a $75,000 product off a website without meeting a salesperson, perhaps being wined and dined, meeting the president, that sort of thing. Okay. The weakness of traditional or outbound marketing is that the targeting is critical. I mean, if you're going to spread the word about your business, you got to spread it to the right people, and that's a key element, and sometimes that's difficult to do. Another weakness, it's not as easy to receive venture capital funding. All right? So the things on the left in inbound marketing are essentially all software platforms that are selling marketing tools to people. That's the kind of thing, software is the kind of thing VCs love to fund. All right? The things on the right, traditional marketing, tend to be more labor-based things. They don't scale up. You can't build a website that's going to create a good advertising campaign. There's people involved there. And that is producing a lot of funding in the inbound marketing space from VCs, and is the reason why the number of companies claiming they can help you solve your problem has doubled to 1,876 in 1 year. There's just a lot of money chasing that idea. Now, the truth is, they're both good. Neither one is better than the other. It's not a black and white kind of case. Every business needs a mix of both. What we'd urge you, though, is to not just do one or the other, because you really do need a mix of both. And the proof for us is what big companies do. A lot of what we focus on is trying to help small businesses. And when we look to the big companies, they all rely on a mix of inbound and traditional marketing. And they're very much skewed to the things like advertising and sponsorships. And they do that for a reason. And just a quick proof point, $20 billion were spent on inbound marketing software last year. And just the advertising segment is 10 times as big, $220 billion. That amount of money is being spent because it's effective. So you really do need a mix. So that was the overall strategy section. We're going to go through some of the specifics now. And networking is the thing that most people don't even think of when they start thinking about how do I get better at my marketing. The pros of networking is that it's very effective, especially if it's a B2B, business-to-business kind of sale, complex products or sales, as I mentioned earlier. And also, if the sale ultimately relies on a personal relationship or trust, attorneys, CPAs, advisors, coaches, people like that, the face-to-face is really critical right there. The advantage is it seems very low cost, seems easy to do. Just go off to a meeting and talk to people, right? And you get real-time feedback. You left that meeting, you have 5 cards or 10 cards, you feel like this is great. Why do I have to benchmark anything? The challenge is networking, in a certain sense, is the most expensive form of marketing. Okay, they're often very high time and opportunity costs, and that's especially true if it's a key person's time. I mean, the president of your company is spending 2 hours collecting business cards. That means they're spending 2 hours not doing something else. It's also typically a really inefficient way to use a really good salesperson. If they're a really good account executive, if they're really skilled at pulling prospects through the sales funnel, if they're really good at closing deals, there are more cost-effective ways to generate leads for that individual than have them sit there and drink coffee for 2 hours. It's also really hard to benchmark networking. It's a very emotional impression. You know, you leave, you make a good connection with somebody, you walk out with their car, you think this guy's really jazzed, and you feel emotionally this is going to work. And then 3 months later, it ends up not closing. That kind of gets lost, that it was this particular event that you met them and what you said to them and that kind of thing. And there is plenty of room for continuous improvement in networking. You can improve your pitch, you can improve the venues and the different groups you go to and so on. Email marketing is the next element of the essential pie here. And what's in it for me, this is especially important in email marketing. We break this up into a couple different types. So they're promotional mailings. Their goal is really generate leads and sales pretty directly. And then what's in it for me, what's in it for the prospect is basically I'm going to save money, I'm going to get a deal. That's why I'm going to open this email, because I think I'm going to get something from it. The next category are newsletters and digests. And they're not so much a direct lead generator. You send it out, you can expect to get a lead. They're more over time. They're designed to help move prospects through that sales funnel. A couple of different categories here. You can have subscription digests that can go out every week. If you do a little work up front, and you can connect up your blog, for instance, with your mail vendor, when people subscribe to your blog, any new postings you do that week can automatically go out to all the subscribers. So this is an example where there's a little bit upfront technical work, but once it's up and running, it's kind of automatic. You don't have to do anything else, and people are getting information from you. But what's in it for them is usually going to be useful information, actionable information, not so much commercial, right? It's more tips and tricks and things like that. And then the other category is a monthly newsletter, which is a little bit of a hybrid of the other three. So it's typically going to combine promotions and customer wins and tips and tricks, and it could have promotions, though we generally recommend just one promotion per issue so that it doesn't get lost in the shuffle. And so the what's in it for them is primarily going to be the information and the promotion. There's another category of email marketing that people often forget, which is the customer service end of things. Again, we're trying to get incremental revenue from existing customers, which is usually much, much more profitable than trying to find some brand new prospect. And so renewal reminders, appointment confirmations, things like that let you do upsells, solidify the relationship, foster word-of-mouth marketing, and so on. The benefits of email is that it's a direct way to communicate. You're not going through some other Facebook and its policies and what you can say and not say. It generates leads and sales and helps move prospects through the funnel. It's actually a relatively inexpensive way to do marketing. Depending on the size of your mailing list, it can actually be free. It could be, $50, $100 a month. It gives you very quick benchmarkable results. The mail providers show you the opens and the clicks and things like that, and you typically get most of your activity within 2 days to the first week. So within a week or so, you're going to know how effective a mailing was. It also allows you to do A/B testing, which is a generally important concept in marketing, and the idea is you can test different things easily. So let's say there's a debate in your company about what's the best way to describe your company or a new product or a new service. You can basically divide up your mailing list in half and write up one mail piece that uses the one phrasing and write the other half, gets the other phrasing, and then a week later you can compare the results and see which one led to more conversions, which one led to more sales. So you can do some real testing, not theoretical testing, to see what's the right positioning. And that really applies to many, many different things in marketing, and email in particular is very easy to do that with. Some tips for email. Buying a list is very expensive, and so it's a lot better to try and build your own. So you can have a physical sign-up sheet in your store. You can have a list of trade shows. You can offer some kind of gift if they throw a business card in your jar. You can have on Facebook and social media site the ability to subscribe. You certainly on your own site should allow visitors to subscribe to your blog and your newsletter if you're doing both. And on all of your various forms on your site, whether it's a contact us or give me your email address to get a white paper, you should have a default choice be, please subscribe me. So when they submit that to get the white paper, they're opting in to your mailing list. Now they're free to opt out and uncheck the thing, but by default they're going to be subscribed. And the same thing applies if it's an e-commerce site. And this is a way over time to build your opt-in list. Another tip is to use an automatic responder. So we've all had the experience where you submit a form on some site and then you don't know, did it work? Did they get it? I asked for some help or something and I don't know. So the autoresponder answers that problem where the website automatically sends out a canned answer. We'll be in touch shortly. Thank you for subscribing. The reason for this, it's just common decency. It relieves that fear that did it get it. It also is the first step for lead nurturing. So lead nurturing is beyond an essentials feature, but it's a very powerful extension to email marketing, the things we've been talking about. The basic idea is an intelligent series of emails that, depending on your choices you made in the first one, if you clicked on something or you didn't click on something, the second email you get is going to be different and more customized to you. It's the idea of like pulling people through the sales cycle. Another thing beyond essentials would be the notion of download bait. I referred a couple of times to getting a white paper so that you can submit your email address. The white paper is an example of download bait. You write some content that's going to be interesting, and people sign up to get the content, and in this case, they can trigger a lead nurturing process. Next thing we're going to talk about is paid marketing, and we're going to focus in specifically around online and search engine advertising. And this is often referred to as PPC advertising or pay per click. And that's to distinguish it from the older kind of advertising, which is impression-based. It's Nielsen TV ratings. It's how many people they think are watching the show, not how many people actually took some sort of action. All right? The pro of this is that it requires a pretty small financial investment in comparison to things like direct mail or print advertising. Direct mail, you got to print up the piece in quantity, you got to buy all those stamps. There's a significant investment you have to make before you get your first lead, whereas PPC or online advertising, you can really get up in as little as $200 a month. It's relatively easy to set up, and it adds even quicker response than even email. It's pretty much instant. You put the ads up there, and as soon as people click, you start seeing that. They can also be turned on and off immediately. They're very adjustable. So if you're running over budget, you can just turn that knob down or turn it off completely. And that's in contrast to some of the other strategies that we're talking about here. Things like search engine optimization, SEO, or content marketing. Those things take a long time to build. Advertising is a really quick thing, so you can sort of interleave them. You can start in the beginning with a lot of ads, and then if you start getting leads from SEO and content marketing, you can start saving money and not spending as much on advertising. So there are some creative strategies you can deploy over time. The other thing about paid marketing is that you can, if you choose your keywords wisely, you can target any stage of the sales funnel. If you think back to that earlier slide about the sales funnel, if you talk about humane pet care, if that's your keyword and that's the word that triggers your ad when somebody types it in, you're basically targeting somebody in that first step in the sales funnel we call visitor one, right? So that keyword is actually letting you target a particular user, and importantly, you have some sense of who they are and what they're looking for, what the needs are, how far they might be to close. There's a lot of information that can be gathered from that. The challenges with paid marketing is that it's really hard to become an expert. It's easy to start, but it's not so easy to become an expert. There are lots of dials and knobs and different settings you need to change, and they all have very complicated interactions with each other. And the basic idea is if you're not doing it well, you're literally wasting dollars, right? Google's going to charge you more for an unoptimized ad campaign for the same click than if it was optimized, okay? And so the other big challenge is for small businesses, the budget size is often a challenge. For one thing, the smaller the budget, the longer it's going to take to see results. I mean, if you end up getting 20 ad visitors a month, it's going to take a couple of months before you get enough data to start making, informed decisions about whether advertising is working or not. Maybe even more important, however, is since most ad agencies get paid as a percentage of the amount of money you're spending on advertising, there are very few firms that take small budgets because they're going to get a small fee and the work is kind of fixed, so you might as well work for a bigger company. And so those are two significant challenges with paid marketing. Beyond the essentials, you can certainly broaden the search engine advertising. You can go onto social media advertising, different social media platforms. There are certainly lots of industry sites. There's traditional print advertising, radio and TV advertising. And then, of course, there's direct mail. If anybody ever looks in their inbox, direct mail is not dead. It's still going strong. And again, because it works. And there's also telemarketing, which is a really interesting hybrid of the in-person marketing. You're talking to a human being but yet it's scalable, unlike sending your key salespeople to a networking event. And they all have strengths and weaknesses, but they're all sort of beyond essentials because of that complexity. So when we do web marketing, the obvious thing for your website, which is really in many ways nowadays the hub of your marketing endeavor, is you need your site to be designed well. It has to have the right content on it, the right kind of pages that answer the basic things. It has to be it cannot be poorly designed, so when you spend all that money on advertising, you're kind of wasting it. I mean, this is a critical item that people often forget. The content is essential not just for people, but also for Google. And some audiences we talk to think the content on the website is only for Google. The truth is it's really for both. As an example of that, all of your critical pages should have a call to action. A call to action, is the idea of what is this page trying to sell to the reader? What do you want them to do next? When they're done with this page, what's the next thing you want them to do? You want them to click to learn more, or contact us, or submit a form, or go download that white paper, or whatever it might be. That should be on all your critical pages so your website gives many opportunities to generate a lead. You also want to make sure that your site has content for visitors in all stages of the sales funnel. You think back to that first chart. You want for people who are trying to figure out, is it a solution for me, as well as people trying to figure out, do I want the GPS option or the replaceable batteries? You need a mix of things. Another way to flip that around is you want your site to be able to attract prospects at any stage of the sales funnel. Because Google sees all those pages, all those are out there, and when people are searching on those, you would like your page to rank well, so they click on your page and they're brought to your site. You need to keep in mind that most sites have two different kinds of pages. There are sort of the fixed marketing pages. They tend to be longer lived. They tend to be more formal. And then there are regular blog posts, which are shorter lived and more formal, can be very, very specific. You also want to make sure your site has depth, but not too much. And you want to make sure you actually have written phrases. It's not just a series of bullets. Okay. When it comes to SEO, there are really two main components to SEO. All right. So search engine optimization is the ability to rank well when people are searching on a search engine for your site, and to come up high on that list, and then to get them to click on your particular listing. There are two components to that. One is what's called on-page SEO. These are the elements on your website that the search engines can see. It's the content, the words, the ideas, as well as a bunch of technical factors, how fast pages load, things like that. There's also off-page SEO. These are elements on other websites that a search engine sees about your company. And a good example of that are inbound links. So these are links from some other site that link to your site. All right? And why these are important, and off-page SEO is important, is because this is essentially how search engines know if your site is good or not, right? And for those old enough to remember, before Google became Google, its main competitor was a search engine called Alta Vista, and there were plenty of others. And at the time, they all did on-page SEO. You would type in a query into the search engine, and it would come back. 10 million pages have that phrase on them, right? And the two guys who founded Google had a really simple, basic insight, which is worth hundreds of billions of dollars. And that insight was that, you know what? If the website is really good, more people are going to link to it, right? If it's a good source of information, people are going to link to it more and more. And therefore, we can take the number of links, inbound links to that site, and importantly also the quality, because not every site is equal. So the more quality inbound links to a site is a pretty good proxy, a pretty good approximation of how useful that site is. And that's what off-page SEO is. It's the critical part of search engine optimization to get you to rank well, right? And there are different ways you can do this. There are a lot of strategies, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Google uses many different inputs or signals to rank websites beyond just those two I mentioned. The graphic on the left is just a list of all the different kind of factors, a lot of them very technical, but we colored in orange the ones that are social media sites. And it's kind of distressing to a lot of folks to see how many social media things Google takes into account when it's trying to rank your website. Another reality is that SEO is not a one-time thing. Talk about a continuous improvement. The algorithms themselves change all the time. There was just a recent one about mobile-friendly websites. It's also an ongoing arms race, okay? You tweet based on your competitors, they tweet based on you. The on-page SEO are the different elements of the page, your titles, your descriptions, your images. Is your site responsive, meaning is it mobile friendly, and things like that. The off-page SEO has to do with this inbound link analysis. You want to make sure you have a diversity of sources. You want to make sure they're coming from different kinds of sites. You want to make sure they don't all just point to your homepage. They also point to some of the interior pages, and that's where the key concepts comes really into play. You want to make sure the actual text that people click on, what's called the anchor text, has a diversity in there too, right? Because those are all clues to Google when it's trying to figure out how to rank your thing. And then a really important source of good ideas are your competitors, and this is really where the arms race comes in. If you look at your competitors, you're going to realize, oh, I never thought about that website. I can try and get an inbound link from them, right? And they're doing the same thing to you, hence the arms race. National and local listings are very important. They have an SEO benefit. They're generating inbound links, but they're also really expanding your marketing presence. You know, instead of trying to get the world to come to your website, the idea here is, well, have your website go to the world. Go to where your prospects hang out, right? And so, as an example, on the national front, you can get links from your site from business and industry, associations, trade shows, suppliers. If you're a local business, there's a whole category called local marketing. There are lots of websites like Yelp and MapQuest and things like that that are all designed around local marketing and ranking local search engines. And there are literally hundreds of sites to choose from. They're all free. You can go to Yelp and you can claim your business and you can update that listing. And basically Yelp and these other sites are giving you an entire page on their site, a very high traffic site, to talk about your business. That's a sense you can expand your presence. You can also choose, like what we often do, is we have a third-party tool from Yext where a single login lets you get to all these different sites at once instead of logging into so many over time. We mentioned earlier that sometimes you have to pay for the inbound links, and there are basically two ways to pay. One way is to pay with content. So, typical scenario, there's some influential blogger, and the guy writes a lot about subject X. So you go to your blog, and you write some interesting take on X, and then you email that person and you say, hey, I've got this interesting take on X, and maybe they'll link to it from their site. And so you get the SEO benefit, and again, you hopefully get some of their readers coming across because they might also be interested in X. And there are lots of other kinds of content, press releases, videos, infographics, and so on. The other way to get an inbound link is to pay for it with dollars, okay? And that could be as simple as running a banner ad. As part of a banner ad, that publisher will give you a listing on their site. Oftentimes, like the case of Better Business Bureau, they give you a really skimpy listing for free, but if you pay them more money, you get a fuller list and it includes an inbound link. There are many things you can do on an ongoing basis. Basically, you want to continue all these different things over time, especially in terms of SEO and listings and promotions. Beyond essentials, you can keep doing the things we've been talking about. You can enrich them. There's also a lot of digital counterparts to some of the things you do in person and local that can also be done. We list a few of them here. Content marketing is another strategy to grow your sales and leads, and it does that by creating and distributing content that will attract qualified prospects. You can create original content in your blog. You can do news or curated content. We'll talk about that. Videos, infographics, and then you can distribute it in various ways. We talked about email digest, the subscriptions. You certainly put it on your site as download bait, social media, SlideShare, and so on. The benefit of content marketing, like a lot of things we're talking about, is it helps move prospects through the sales funnel. So the visitor one, is there a solution to my problem? Okay, if you produce a white paper or some interesting infographic, they're going to be interested in that. Okay. Similarly, you can precisely target. The subjects that the visitor one person is interested in are going to be different than the subjects that the visitor two person or the prospect is interested in, okay? And so by your choice of what you're writing about, you're also targeting the content. Other benefits, it's very good for SEO. It keeps your site fresh. It allows you to target and speak to smaller, more focused group of prospects. It allows you to raise your brand awareness, and this is very important in the realm where it's more of a personal sell. It allows you to highlight your expertise and your skill. I mean, if you're an attorney, if you're a CPA, you're fundamentally marketing your expertise. You're a really good lawyer, you're a smart lawyer, and content marketing is a way to do that by getting that expertise out there. And the nice thing about it, because of search engines, it could be on really obscure topics. It could be about estate planning for left-handed people in Alabama, in one county in Alabama. It could be very specific if you wanted it to be. And again, if you write the right content, left-handed people in that county in Alabama might be searching on it, and they'll find your thing. Where you start with content marketing is to define your objectives and you make a plan. Who's your audience? What resources are available? Who's a good writer? Is anybody familiar with social media? Am I going to be blogging once a month, once a week, every 6 months? If I'm going to social media, what are the right platforms for my prospects? Where are they likely to be hanging out? Our approach should be to write once, use many times. At the end of the day, writing is hard. It takes creative energy, and so you want to leverage that investment. So if you've written a blog post, you'd like it to automatically show up on Facebook. You'd like it to go out in an email digest with MailChimp, show up as a tweet, that sort of thing. We also recommend planning ahead, okay? Getting an editorial calendar. You want to get a couple of weeks in the bank. You don't want to be running around Thursday when you're supposed to publish on Friday. Oh, what are we going to write tomorrow? You want to have that all done. We generally recommend a post a week because the consistency and the frequency ends up being important in generating an audience. And then we've already talked about the various ways you can distribute that content. Now I want to talk a little bit about content curation, which is a new and upcoming buzzword if people have searched around on the web. And the basic idea is that you want to find some existing content and put your own fresh spin on it. And the key insight, it's a lot easier to comment on somebody else's idea than it is to come up with your own and write something well. And what we're trying to diagram in that the version of the dreaded blank page, it's a blank blog page. You just have this big white field, and you've got to start putting your great ideas on that page. It helps you with that problem. Another aspect of this is that the truth is the world is overflowing with information. You can do a search on almost anything, and there's no lack of people writing about that subject. But nowadays, being the editor is almost as important as being a good writer. If you can find the good bits of information, if you're surveying your industry and you're putting your spin on the things you think are useful and so on, that's a real value to readers, and that will get people to subscribe. And content curation has many of the same benefits as original blogging, but again, it's much, much easier to do, all right? Especially in the time-stressed small business environment. Now, the way this works in practice, what we're calling the authoring sign, the little scenario here is I was reading the New York Times, I'm in my browser, I'm just reading the daily paper, and I saw this this story in the business section, and we use a technology from a company called Scoop.it that has a little plug-in that goes in the Firefox toolbar. And when I saw this New York Times story, I push a little button, and the little pop-up you see on the right launched. And up at the top, there is an excerpt from the original story with a photo that I can go and edit if I don't like how Scoop.it summarized the story. Below that, I have a little edit box. I can add my own little insights, my little take, my spin, my originality. And then I can click a couple of different checkboxes and have it show up on my blog and have it show up on my Facebook page, my Google Plus page, and so on. And then I can publish or schedule it right at the bottom. That pop-up goes away, and I'm back on the New York Times page, and I can go to the next story. The reading side, what happens when that story gets submitted is the most common scenario is on the vendor site. So if you go to Scoop.it right now, you would find a topic called Smart Digital Marketing, and that's the sales renewal topic on that site, and you can find that New York Times story. Better than that, though, because when it goes on the vendor site, all the traffic is going to the vendor, okay? All the SEO benefits are going to the vendor. It's much better to actually get that content to show up on your site. That's the picture on the right, so people can come to your site, and they can also subscribe to your curated content feed. As far as tips for content marketing, you want to post regularly, you want to know your audience, you want to add interesting things, and that's where the news content is really helpful because it's easy to add that stuff. And you do want to have some fun, be a little distinctive. There's a whole world of things, obviously, that can be done beyond the essentials. When it comes to social media, a lot of business people say, oh, what social media, especially on business-to-business kind of marketing. Well, LinkedIn is important for B2B, and unfortunately, social media is too big to ignore at this point. One of our clients was targeting electrical engineers, and it turns out there's a Facebook group of electrical engineers that's much bigger than the actual professional association of electrical engineers. all right? And so you got to go where the crowds are. The key to social media is you want to select your networks. It's important to know your bandwidth. It's better to do one or two networks right than spread yourself thin across all of them. You want to post regularly. You want to have users develop an expectation they're going to see content from you. And you want to interact with the people. If somebody follows you, it's generally good practice to follow them. Okay? A lot of the rules of polite civil society apply online. As far as tips, you don't want to oversell. We advocate an 80-20 rule. You want 80% of your time spent on activities that are not self-promotional. You do not want to come across, even if you are a salesperson, you don't want to come across as a salesperson. What's in it for me? This is the mode where they're looking generally for helpful information, not to be sold. All right. Importantly, if you join a new online group, treat it like a cocktail party. When you walk into a cocktail party, you don't start speaking in a very loud voice, "Hey, I am great. Here's why I'm great." Right? We generally advise when you join a new group, hang out for a while, see what the content is, see comments and questions, and slowly over time start adding your perspective. There is a whole world of things beyond social media, in particular around press release and thought leadership, that are all important potential strategies beyond the essentials. Now, everything we've talked about were sort of the sales and marketing strategies, but the truth is, and this is one of the reasons why marketing has gotten very technical, is that all of those things rely on a lot of technology. So here's that same screenshot of the analytics, but what you see at the bottom now is an actual visitor log. And just quickly going through this, the first one is indicating there was a web lead. Somebody went to a contact us and submitted, and it originally came from search engine optimization. The second one was a phone call. Somebody had clicked on an ad, come through the client's website, and ended up calling the phone number they saw at the top of the page. The next one indicates that this person's a repeat visitor. They've been to the site many times. And the last one is an example of an email lead. So somebody was on the site, and then actually in number 4 there, they were on Yelp, and they submitted an email from Yelp, and this was recorded as a lead. Other important things about your website technology, it needs to be responsive, which again means it's response to the width of a page. It works well on mobile phones. It needs to be fast and meet a bunch of technical criteria. You don't want to have errors. You don't want to have duplicate content. Yes, it's true. Plagiarism, Google will penalize you for plagiarism. When it comes to the actual software that most websites are built out of today, called content management systems, you want to make sure that you can do it, not a tech person can make changes. So for instance, if you have a DN, WordPress, or those others in that list, you're probably okay. That's a decent content management system. If you have one of these really, really simple-minded, easy to build a website often means it's not very flexible. So Wix, Squarespace, GoDaddy, things like that, you might want to consider an upgrade. And heaven forbid, if you're paying an engineer to change your web page every time because it's an old-fashioned HTML, you definitely want to upgrade. Other things to think about is, can you provide login access? Can you install analytics tracking code so you can do all this rich ROI stuff? When you're setting up things, you want to set up Google Analytics. You want to set up various tools that both Google and Bing give you. There's free accounts on Moz and Ahrefs that help you with the search engine optimization. You want to make sure you submit your site to all of them, and you must make sure if you ever launch a new site, or if you take an existing page and you change its web address, its URL, you want to redirect it. And redirecting is basically a command to Google that when somebody is searching for humane pet-endorsed solutions and Google displays an old page and they click it and they redirect it to this other page, it's an instruction to Google to say, hey, update your index. And that old page is being replaced with a new page, but don't lose any of my SEO juice. So that was a very quick, sorry to say, somewhat rushed version. There's a lot of information we're trying to share here. We're going to get some email addresses at the end. Obviously, we're happy to follow up with folks if they have questions. But we basically just kind of walked through the essential elements of a marketing solution today. And this is the commercial part of the seminar. And essentially, the next couple of slides, we're going to talk about a way to tailor everything we just talked about to your specific business. It's what Sales & Know calls its marketing essentials solution. It's starts out as a 6-month trial, and this is important. If you think back to that graphic that had 1,876 different vendors out there all claiming to help, the thing is it's really confusing. And so we decided to make our Marketing Essentials the first thing be a 6-month trial, and the idea is we're going to expose you to all these different approaches that we think are essential to your business, and then you're going to be able to make an informed decision at the end of the 6 months as to what you think is best next. So over the 6 months, the first month we spend doing a blueprint. So we work together with you to assess your current sales and marketing activities and what's your technology infrastructure like and what changes. Oh, we need call to actions over here. We need to improve the positioning over there, that sort of thing. The second month, we go off and implement those technical changes. If you had big images on your website and that was slowing down your page speed, we can reduce the image size and speed up your pages, things like that. We implement those technical changes for you. And then in months 3, 4, 5, and 6, the last 4 months, we have a very active guided marketing program. And the idea is we're going to meet with you weekly, an hour every week, and we're going to coach and advise you on the best practices for all the things we just talked about. All right? And the advantages here is that you're going to benefit from our experience and expertise. It's not a self-service tool that you just have a bunch of tools and then you have to figure out how to use them. Every week for an hour, we're going to be talking with you actively on these different things. We're going to help accelerate you through your learning curves. And importantly, stuff always happens, things that are unanticipated come up, and you're going to have a sounding board for issues, and together we can figure out what's the best way to get beyond them. There are also the two kind of things that we do not think make sense for amateurs to do. The online advertising and the off-page SEO are included in the package, and we will manage them. You don't have to get involved with them. The online advertising, by the way, supports an ad budget as little as $200 a month, although we recommend the minimum is more like $5, and there's no upper limit. The 6-month trial also includes technology. It includes the analytics. You saw some screenshots in the presentation of the analytics technology that tracks the phone calls and things like that. It includes a new front end we're launching for blogging, for WordPress and other blogging platforms that lets the original content, what's in your blog today, and the curated content that typically shows up on the vendor site or maybe, if you're lucky, your site, but actually lets them all show up in the blog and makes your blog fuller, more of a reason to subscribe to it, and so on. We also provide all the other technology as part of this, the email, the content curation technology, the scoop of things, the X, the trackable phone numbers. It's all bundled in, trying to make this very, very simple. After 6 months of training and hands-on experience, you're now at a point where you could now tell us what you think works. Right? You've been exposed to all these different things, and you can say, this is working for me, this is not, I want to do more of this, more of that, or less of that. And the idea is you have 3 explicit choices. You can, at the end of the 6 months, say, you know what, I learned a lot, thank you so much, I'm going to take this stuff in-house, and we will part friends. Another possibility is you think, I love this Marketing Essentials, I really love the guided marketing, let's keep doing that, all right? A third possible scenario is you decide to upgrade to our custom joint sourcing solution, where everything is completely custom, it's completely honed, and lots more possibilities with joint sourcing. It also shares the risk and reward. Okay, so it aligns our economic interests, and it's a very powerful program, and you're going to be in a much better position to know which of those 3 options make sense to you. The Marketing Essentials fee is $2,500 a month. It's a flat fee for each of the 6 months, and everything's included except for the 3 things at the bottom there, which are really, we couldn't bundle them in because they're really up to you. So, for instance, the amount of money you spend on advertising, that's completely up to you. Now, to be clear, the fee for the ad agency is included. You don't pay that separately. But the money you'd end up paying Google or Bing, that's up to you, and that would be an extra thing. And similarly with the email and hosting fees. We don't know how many email names you have in your list, and that's how they typically charge for that. We don't know how big a server you have. So those, with the exception of those 3 kind of small things, everything's included in that one flat fee. At the end of the 6 months, you're going to be in a much better position to know which of these directions make the most sense. So I don't know if we have any time till the left, but that is the end of the presentation.
Thank you. We have.
I don't know if there's any questions.
No questions? Then let me open up the floor for any questions that may come from the phone. If you would like to ask a question, please press star 1 on your touch-tone phone. Keith, we did not receive any questions on the phone. Do you have any final remarks?
I put up on the last slide here, Audrey and mine, and Audrey actually, since an email time.
Hi, I am here. You don't need to rate me on the survey because Keith did a good job with the presentation.
And so feel free to reach out to either or both of us if you have any further questions about the marketing essentials or our particular commercial solution for that.
Thank you. If you enjoyed today's program and would like to learn more about sales renewal, please call Keith at 508-283-4741 and Audrey at 508-529-4300, extension 104. To reach Lorban's Customer Service Department, please call 866-226-0828. Thank you for your participation. You may now disconnect.